and 20 days into Trump's presidency. 120 in numbers comes to the truth. 120. It also comes to, on the other side, Tavistock, and we'll probably find out more and more as time goes on in regards to the truth of Tavistock. Tavistock was all part of that kind of, what's the phrase? Mind control programming. So the Beatles, the music group, they were involved with that. Other things, but Tavistock Institute, yeah. Anyway, it's readily available online. People can look it up themselves. Hey Vanessa, how are you? Good to see you. Good to see you. And so, yeah, 120, the truth. The truth can't come out quicker. I mean, it could, but you know what I'm saying. Thankfully, it will be arriving as quickly as it can get here. From a wet Cape Town, Ronell. Oh right, okay, nice one. Well, not that it's wet, but nice one that you're here in from Cape Town. Maris. Now, Maris, remind me where you're from. Where are you from again? Mariano, out in the Canaries. Hey, Scarlett. So 120. I saw they re-released the film, and it's not a plug to go and watch it. It's 28 days later, and I saw this when it came out actually years ago. Hey Jamie, great to see you too. And I didn't like it when I first watched it. I had other things going on in my life that were occupying my mind at that time. But I preferred it second time around today because I haven't seen it since. But one thing always stood out to me. Hey, Jedi Law, there you go, awesome. One thing always stood out to me is the beginning of that movie. They show a deserted London, and there's imagery of November 5th because Cillian Murphy, the main character, the protagonist, he's called Jim actually, 32 Obama actually. Yeah. It's also life, so you know, Jim can be positive as well as negative, I guess, as well. Depends how you look at it. But they have imagery of a deserted London. But you see, I've got one here, but you see the big wheel. So you see Big Ben and you see the big wheel, the Millennium Wheel, and the River Thames, and it reminded me of COVID actually. That's what it is, because it's all about this virus and quarantining, and it makes me think of what maybe might have happened in regards to Hillary. But obviously Trump and the team changed it out, swapped it out, and just let a narrative run out that people could, they could use for good purposes. But if it had been a full on whitewash elimination of people, then that's, through a virus, you got the zombie narrative. That's probably maybe more what it might have been like in terms of a dystopian and destructive force. But thankfully that wasn't the case. But the interesting thing is there's the November 5th imagery, and there's also the November 5th imagery, and then all the stuff with the virus. But anyway, the point being is it's got re-released because they did a follow-up a few years later, which I haven't seen, which is 28 weeks later. And then there's the new one coming out, which is 28 years later. So they're re-releasing the first two, and then the new one that's coming out. Interesting though, something I noticed with it this time round was so Cillian Murphy won the film. He won the Oscar for Oppenheimer, and he's Peaky Blinders. Is in Peaky Blinders. Tom Hardy is also in Peaky Blinders, and they're both kind of stellar actors in the Nolan films. But there's a film with Bronson called Bronson with Tom Hardy in it, and there's a scene in there where he basically has to get naked so you can see all of his bits flopping around, his giblets, and anyway, to put it mildly. And then I'd completely forgotten this, but Cillian Murphy in 28 Days Later, he's there on a bed naked in a hospital, and his bits are flopping around. But I was thinking about that. I was like, I remember Ariel, others have alluded to it, but you know Ariel on Twitter, he talked about the whole humiliation rites of passage thing, and how these actors have had to do things like that, like a humiliation ritual, and then they're fast-tracked to stardom. Now both Murphy and Hardy are both great actors, and they've been in the big blockbuster franchises, they've been in the really popular TV series, and they've also been in low-key, one of them was called Locke actually, that Hardy's in. They've been in these low-key kind of art house films as well, so they've had a, you know, and theatre as well, so they get to do all of them. But I was like, and Cillian Murphy, I didn't know what who he was until he was in the big blockbuster films like Batman and Inception, and then Dunkirk and Oppenheimer and all those. But it's interesting that those actors had to do that. That's kind of part and parcel of it. Anyway, so if you want to see Cillian Murphy's bits, then you can. It's on that film, and it's 15. It's not very high, not because of his bits, but I just remember it being more kind of gory. I thought it was going to be an 18, but it's a 15 certificate, which is not the highest one anyway. Not that I'm a prude about certification for movies, but anyway, it's just an interesting observation, and the rites of passage that these people have to go through to get there. You had the John Cena one, didn't you, where he had to come out on stage at the Oscars and in the buff, and then just cover up his pudding, and pretend to present an award, you know. So anyway, there's lots of that, all that sort of stuff that goes on. Anyway, so going back to November 5th, you got the imagery of 28 Days Later. I mentioned it yesterday or the day before. Mission Impossible, that new film's coming out. Mission Impossible is 217. And you got 17 there, you got two of them. But 217 is also Houses of Parliament, 217. Lady Diana Francis Spencer, 217. Tom Sidney Bushnell, 217. Mission Impossible, 217. If you do Mission Impossible Mask, it's 261. 261 comes to Frederick Christ Trump plus Q. It comes to November 22nd, the date of JFK in 63. It comes to August 31st, the date of Diana in 1997. It comes to John Fitzgerald Kennedy Jr. 261. It comes to the United States of America 261. It comes to coronavirus puzzle 261. And Boris told us when he went into lockdown that the key to the coronavirus puzzle was to stay indoors. He told us that it can be worked out, that it was a puzzle. All of this is a puzzle, and that's what I help myself with it firstly, and then I share what I understand with it to you wonderful folk. But it's a puzzle that can be worked out, and it's a very complex puzzle, but beautiful and simple and divine and all the rest of it. Complex is 88 Trump. But that's what's happening. That's what's happening, and we're reminded of all the things in the movies. Now, the other thing is with this is Danny Boyle. He's another interesting one. Now, Danny Boyle was the director of the Olympic ceremony in London in 2012, with all that symbolism, all that imagery, and I remember having not good vibes around the London Olympics. It was, you know, virtually in my hometown, well, it was my home city. I wanted to go to the events, but I just got this feeling of don't go. The only thing I went to was the cycle race at Box Hill on the opening morning, and that's as close as I got to the Olympics, out of choice. I thought maybe something would happen with the stadium. I think maybe it would have done, and I think White Hats might have stopped that. But they showed all the imagery. So there was the big massive Boris Johnson. There was the Grim Reaper around children's beds and all kinds of stuff. So that was all stopped. I say it was all stopped. It was shown, but the severity of it was diminished. But they still let the narrative of the virus play out. Play is what palladium is 89, virus is 89, mutant is 89 as well. Yeah, if it's the one, yeah, yeah, no. I would. People claiming that, just use your discernment on stuff. I mean, other people say all kinds of stuff about things like that, and it's like, yeah, you just look at it for 2 seconds, you're like, no, that's not the case. What was I saying? Yeah, so Danny Boyle. So this is interesting, and how it's a clever system. So Danny Boyle, I remember saying he denied being made a Sir. I think it was a Sir, or taking an OBE, like an official thing from the Queen. And on the surface, that makes you think, oh, he's one of us lot. But Danny Boyle did that film 28 days later. He did the opening ceremony for the Olympics. I would question whether he was on our side or not. I'd question that. Yeah, I would question that. He did train spotting as well. I think, did Danny Boyle do train spotting? I think he did. Maybe I'm wrong on that. I think he did. Ewan McGregor. So that was another one. So you get these actors that get fast tracked, and they go through the whole, you know, the rite of passage. They do all the things they do, you know, and I'm sure Ewan McGregor was probably similar. You know, he's fast tracked like Tom Hardy, fast tracked like Cillian Murphy. It'd be nice to see some of those ones actually come out and be like full white hat swap, which they might be. I mean, the new Tom Cruise, I think, is kind of veering towards that. But President Trump mentioned him ages ago, said, oh, he's a nice guy. So Tom Cruise got swapped ages ago. But it doesn't mean we can't enjoy the films. Doesn't mean that we can't. Doesn't mean that we can't enjoy the films. You know, that's the thing. Is like I've said it before, but we wouldn't have any music, entertainment, if we just chucked it all out with the bathwater. And that's what they're doing with central casting. They're swapping people around. They're swapping it around, and using it for good purposes. So anyway, we will see. We'll see in time what happens with them all. Talking of Tom Cruise, so this is a reminder. Do you remember when I first started? You can look back, if you wind the clock back on my show, you go, just click the oldest videos and start watching back from there. In 2020, I went down to Buckingham Palace a few times and I saw the big black mark on the palace gate, meaning the crest had been taken. It was crestfallen. So there was, for those that don't know, there was a big black, physical black mark, black placard placed on the gate of Buckingham Palace. And it happened apparently before Corona, but it was definitely up for a good 11, maybe a year or so, 11 months, maybe a year or so in Corona. And I took videos of it, and lots of people, I'd even point it out to tourists and people walking past, and no one really clocked it. But there were people that clocked it. I was obviously one of them. And the press never touched it at all. One of the things they said, there's like a little thing you have to search for it, and it said in one of the papers, they mentioned it, and they lied about it. They said, oh, it was hit by a trade lorry. But a lorry doesn't go through the front of Buckingham Palace, it goes through the side entrance, the goods entrance. So that was a lie. But no one in the press picked it up. You know, they didn't make a big song and dance of it, but it was a marker from the White Hat saying that the palace had fallen. And it was empty for ages. But the black mark, the only thing publicly that ever showed that in a massive potential way was Tom Cruise's Twitter page. When he went to watch the movie Tenet is all about reversing the flow of time. It's showing how some of the things that the White House have done. Diana is the woman that played Diana in The Crown, Elizabeth Debrecki, she's Kat in the film. John David Washington, Denzel's son, the protagonist. He plays well, he plays the protagonist, but his full name, John David Washington, or David John Washington, or Jonathan Washington, 217, which is Lady Diana Frances Spencer 217, Mission Impossible 217. And the woman that plays the main woman in that film, Tenet, she plays Princess Diana in The Crown. So you can see again how all this works. But the other thing, what was I going to say with that? Yeah, so Tom Cruise he doesn't tweet very much, but he did back then in 2020, and it showed him in a black cab driving past Buckingham Palace on his way to the IMAX in Waterloo to watch Tenet. And he watched Tenet, and he's wearing a mask, and he's like, I'm wearing a mask, how did this happen? So that was him showing. So all the ones that had to wear masks, like off the bat, were showing that they'd been captured and swapped. So he was showing that. He's like, how did this happen? But then he watches Tenet, which is a Q film, and then there's the imagery of him driving past Buckingham Palace. It's the only thing I've found publicly on a mass scale, like a media source. So Tom Cruise's Twitter video is a media source because it sort of was seen millions of times. He's got, I don't know, 3 point whatever or 6 million followers. So that's the news channel in its own, in and of its own right. But that's the only time I ever saw that black mark on the palace being displayed publicly. Because believe you me, I was watching out for it at the time, and that was the only one I could ever find. So anyway, folks, I hope you're enjoying your evening, morning, wherever you may be. I got a new I got a new setting on my Halo today. It's radiation, so it's a radiation setting. There you go, a radiation setting on the Halo. So if you're worried about being around people that are shedding because of the events of the last few years, then you can put that on. You can put that on. You can put that on yourself on that setting. Anyway, links are below, and I will see you tomorrow, folks. So God bless you. You take care. Bye.